Proof of stake is broken. The consensus algorithm that everyone once thought would help Ethereum for the better has now completely destroyed it from the inside, with the majority of its users unaware. I have separated this video into 3 parts. First, I will compare proof of stake to Bitcoin's proof of work. Then, I will explain why Ethereum switched to proof of stake. And 3, how it led to further centralization. Before we start though, I must give credit to Jason Lowery's software for being one of my biggest sources when it comes to this topic, and I recommend you read his thesis if you would like a much more in-depth explanation. Part 1. Proof of stake versus proof of work. I want to compare these two consensus algorithms in 3 ways: how they select the creator for a block, how they punish bad actors, and how they incentivize people to mine/stake. To start off, proof of work has everyone competing to be the one creating a block. Bitcoin miners spend a lot of energy trying to be the first ones to find the block's nonce. So, the more power you have at your disposal, the more likely you are to create a block. In comparison, proof of stake randomly selects someone that has staked Ethereum. Note that you are more likely to be randomly picked to create the next block if you have more staked Ethereum. Proof of work punishes bad actors by having them spend energy to achieve nothing. After spending energy creating a fraudulent block, nodes will decline the block, leaving a hole in the malicious actors' pockets. In contrast, on the Ethereum blockchain, people with bad intentions when creating blocks will have some of their stake taken away. In both cases, the rule breaker loses money. Thirdly, how do the two incentivize users to create blocks? In proof of work's case, the block's creator will be rewarded with Bitcoin for his hard work. Currently, creating a block will result in 6.25 Bitcoins. On the Ethereum blockchain, stakers are rewarded with Ether, similarly to Bitcoin. To summarize, proof of work has users spend energy and compete with one another to create blocks, while proof of stake randomly selects a user based on how much stake they have. Bad actors have their stake taken away if they break the rules, while rule breakers on proof of work protocols gain nothing for their efforts. Finally, in both cases, users are incentivized to mine/stake because there is a monetary incentive to do so. Part 2. The reason for the switch. Proof of stake wasn't always Ethereum's consensus algorithm. In fact, it only started using it last year in September. Before then, it was similar to Bitcoin, using proof of work to enforce rules. With that said, why would they go through the incredibly difficult process of switching? Well, they had several reasons. The first one of which was switching to proof of stake would lead to Ethereum reducing its energy usage almost completely. See, a lot of people do not like that Bitcoin and other proof of work protocols use the amount of energy they do. So, having an option to switch to one that consumes almost 100% less energy is attractive. Furthermore, on a surface level, proof of stake looks decentralized, just like proof of work. So, people didn't think they'd be compromising on the main idea behind the digital asset. A second and more complicated reason why they switched was for better programmability. Vitalik explains why they did this well, so here's a quote from him. Proof of work is based on the laws of physics, so you have to work with the world as it is. Whereas proof of stake is virtualized in this way. It's basically letting us create a simulated universe that has its own laws of physics. He explained that he would rather code rules into Ethereum instead of having real-world laws apply. For now, this reason may be difficult to understand, but it will make more sense later. The last reason why they wanted to switch that I would like to cover is that switching would lead to a lower barrier of entry when it comes to being a validator. Before, with proof of work, it was difficult to mine, because buying the hardware was very expensive. With proof of stake though, instead of needing all that hardware, all you needed was some Ether to stake. This, in theory, meant that more nodes would be able to appear and help the network. To sum these reasons up, the switch from the proof of work consensus algorithm to proof of stake would mean that 1. Ethereum used way less energy and became more eco-friendly. 2. Developers would have an easier time programming rules and features to the blockchain. And 3. More nodes would be able to join the network and help out. Part 3. How this leads to centralization. At first glance, proof of stake doesn't look centralized. The selection of candidates for the block creation process is done randomly. Programming the laws of physics virtually doesn't seem all that bad, and having a development team behind it seems like it would help it of all things. But once digging a little deeper, we can uncover a dark truth. First, let's examine how the block creation process is centralized. We already know that users with more Ether staked are more likely to be picked to create blocks. To add on to this, they are rewarded with Ether for doing this task, which they can then stake and increase their chances of creating the next blocks. This creates a cycle. The big problem with this though is that once someone has accumulated most of the stake on the network, they will continue being awarded with more and more of it, which keeps them in the #1 spot forever. This ultimately means that the users with the most stake today will be the users with the most stake in the future, and they will be the ones deciding what they want in blocks forever. They can censor transactions, blacklist users, freeze funds, you name it, all things that Ethereum was once trying to avoid. With that being said, let's now look at what Vitalik was saying about programming the laws of physics virtually. To better understand what he means, it is required to know a bit about cybersecurity. When logically constraining software, aka coding rules onto it, it is very important to understand that this only changes how software can be exploited. Because software can be so complex and the code base behind it can be so large, developers fixing a bug can only introduce new ones that can be found and exploited. With that explained, this is the problem with Ethereum. It's that they decide to logically constrain it by coding their rules onto it, which again only changes how it can be exploited. Bitcoin, however, doesn't suffer as much from this, because its proof-of-work consensus algorithm makes it physically constrained. It takes actual energy to break it, not logic. And this is the point of proof-of-work. It's inefficient by design, so people are required to spend large amounts of real-world energy to use it. The last thing I want to tackle is the team of developers behind Ethereum. The big problem with Ethereum having a development team is that the few people at the top decide the future and fate of the entire network. The amount of changes they make to Ethereum is fine in theory because it's always getting better, but it will inevitably suffer from bad decisions by the developers. Also, something very important to note is that Ethereum users must trust that these developers will act in good faith and not be tempted to change the network in a way that will hurt more people than help. In addition, these developers are in possession of a very large amount of staked Ether, which is a problem, because not only do they control the updates, but they can also control the blocks and their content. Once again, we must trust that they will act in good faith and not abuse their power, because we won't be able to do anything to stop them. In the end, because Ethereum has a development team, it makes it a dangerous asset to hold on to for the long term, as it will become more and more profitable to exploit its growing pool of users. In sum, not only is the block creation process behind Ethereum centralized, but it is designed in such a way that the users with the most staked Ether today will have the most in the future. Constraining Ethereum logically is not a good idea, as it only changes how it can be broken. Finally, Ethereum having a development team is a dangerous aspect of it that needs to be addressed, because there is a possibility of corruption. In conclusion, the switch in Ethereum's consensus algorithm should have been rethought. While their reasoning was fair, it has led to centralization that will not be reversed. They have reached their goal of reducing its emissions almost completely, but it also enabled possible censorship and control during the block creation process. Also, because stakers get rewarded with more Ether, the ones at the top will stay at the top forever. They have gotten better programmability because of this switch, but failed to understand that logically constraining software does not keep it from being exploited. And to end it off, While they did create a lower barrier of entry for people wanting to participate in the network, it has created large entities controlling the majority of staked Ether. If you would like to see more videos like this explaining the theory, technology, and everything else about Bitcoin, please like and subscribe. And don't be afraid of asking questions. I'd love to answer them. Have a great day.